All right, guys, it is time for a quick introduction to using human design for your health. This is a huge area that we're going to start talking about more and more. And so I wanted to just lay it out there initially so that you have kind of an introductory idea of why this is such an important tool and why it's so useful, especially. So, whether you have your chart or not, if you want to get your chart, you can grab it at Jovian Archive. I will put a link to the website in the notes. But basically, your chart is a map of how energy flows through your body. And it's not only a map of how energy flows through you, but it's also a map of how your energy interacts with the world around you and other people around you, especially. So basically, that's going to give an idea of how you tend to operate, how you tend to behave, how you tend to handle stress and pressure, how you how you can make decisions, how you take actions. And what's really cool about the chart is that it maps out the ideal way for you to really operate, like your most effective way of operating in the world, including lifestyle habits that are best for you and your energy and your body. Because as we're going to talk about here, body and energy are very, very interconnected. So the big way that the chart tends to show how you interact with others, it's going to be how you tend to influence those around you and then how they tend to influence you. And it's such a fun, fascinating tool to use to just really dig into how you operate. So before we go into like the specific centers and the gates and in the videos that I'd promised you guys to do, I wanted to just clarify definition and openness because those are kind of two really big keys. So when you have your chart, you'll notice some of it is, you've got all these shapes and lines and it just looks like this massive mess, really. But it all comes together eventually, so just have patience. And on those shapes, you'll notice some shapes are colored. They might be red, yellow, green. They might be some color. And then some of them might be white. So if it's colored in, it is defined. If it is white, it is open. Same with all the little lines. You'll notice there's lines that are either going to be red or black or like a red and black stripe. So red and black stripes, red, black, all of those, any color that is defined. If it's white, it is open. And all that means is that the defined ones, the ones that are colored in, that's your energy map, basically. That is how your energy is flowing through you. It is like the channels. You can kind of think of it like acupuncture as well. Acupuncture talks about all these channels of energy that flow through you. And that's kind of what it is. It incorporates a lot of that wisdom as well as other areas to create the whole chart. So that those are your energy. Those are your lines of energy flow in your body. And that's basically what is consistent. It's how it flows through you. It's always there. And that is what you tend to broadcast into the world. That is like, essentially, that's what you are here to lead with. You are here to share the wisdom and your experiences from those defined areas. Then the open areas are going to be where you take in the energy of others, like where others can influence you. So if you are around a person who does have that defined, you will actually take on that energy. And with open areas, it tends to amplify the energy too. So like a very common one is for someone who has an open emotional center. They will tend to pick up on other people's emotions, like just be very highly empathic. And not only will they tend to pick up on other people's emotions, but it's also very common for them to almost experience those emotions more strongly than the person is actually experiencing them, because they amplify it. And the idea here is that while that can obviously be very draining, a very intense experience, especially for those who are super empathic, It's also the source of your greatest wisdom because because you are open in those areas, you get to experience like the full expression of that center. So on the emotional center, you are able to experience like the full range of emotions, and it's a source of great wisdom because you get to experience that. And when you experience that over time, you build wisdom around that, and you're able to then discern how to handle it best. Whereas people who are defined, they will have a set way of, perhaps like coming back to the emotional center, they will have a set way of experiencing their emotions. And so they don't necessarily, it's almost like you can't teach an old dog new tricks in that sense. Like they have their set way of dealing with it. And so they don't really go outside of that. So they will tend to lead others. Like they may be very, very effective, very good at managing their emotions in this particular way. Maybe they're really good at managing their emotions. I'm trying to think of a good example and I can't think of one, but like maybe they're just very good at emotional self-regulation using a particular technique, and it works really well for them. And so maybe that's what they are able to teach others, is like, this is how you do this really, really well. Whereas a person who has that open center, they've watched how everyone around them manages their emotions, and they're like, oh, okay, see, like I see where this technique is really useful, then I see where this technique is really useful. So in these particular situations, this technique might actually be better. So they actually get that wisdom and they have that ability to really discern, which is very, very cool. And so when you are really starting to look at your chart and how it kind of lays out your most effective way of interacting with the world, think of the defined areas being where you are meant to kind of lead. You are here to show people your way of doing it. And then the open areas are where you're here to really learn and gather as much wisdom as you can, so that when you are able to start discerning when it's best to do certain things, you can then teach that to others. A great example is, for me, I have that open, it's called the spleen. I don't know if it's actually related to the spleen, the organ, but it's called the splenic center. It's very focused on your physical body, your awareness of your physical body, as well as your awareness of your fear and your kind of physical intuition that kind of follow your gut idea, right? I'm open on my spleen. And so what that gives me is that ability to look at other people's bodies, like that tool that I've been using for years to help other people, of like being able to look at their bodies and know what their bodies need, and like teaching other people the best techniques to listen to their bodies. I don't have a set way of doing that because my spleen is open, and so I'm actually able to share that wisdom with people, which is kind of fun. So it's as you learn more about it, you can start looking at your chart and see just where you're open. And we're going to go through each center, and I'll give you a fairly brief rundown of what that center is about, so that you can start kind of deciding, like, how does this show up in my life? You can become aware of how it shows up in your life, and then you can start kind of making more empowered choices on how you want to use that to your advantage and to your thriving, so that you can start thriving. So let's see. I think the big point I wanted to mention before we move on, because a lot of people will kind of feel like, oh, I'm being put into a box with human design with my chart. The chart says I have to do things this way. And so what I wanted to really point out is it's not static. It's not a box at all. What it really does, and I've mentioned this before, is how everything is on a spectrum, especially with human design. In life in general, I think everything's on a spectrum, but human design is no different. While the chart itself kind of shows your map of how energy flows for you, every single center, so all of those little shapes, every single line that you see, they all have a spectrum associated with them. They have kind of the highest expression of them, and then they have the lowest expression, and then kind of, everywhere in between as well. And so every single person has the ability to be experiencing life either in the highest or lowest expressions of that. So what's nice is that with your chart, it will give you kind of that roadmap of, this is the best, most effective way for you to live your life. This is the highest expression for you to use in your decision making, in your action taking, in how you craft your lifestyle, all of it. And it's up to you to decide how you want to interpret that. It's up to you what level of awareness you want to bring to it, what level of effort you want to put into you making any changes. If you've identified an area where you are maybe living in that lower alignment, which is typically, you don't have to have human design to understand this concept of when you are in the fixed mindset, right? It's basically the difference between the growth mindset and the fixed mindset for the highest and lowest expressions. When you're in that fixed mindset all the time, when you're very negative, you only focus on the negative, you tend to believe that you don't have a lot of control. That tends to lead to a less enjoyable life, right? And it often even leads to more chronic health issues and that sort of thing. Less rich and fulfilling relationships, not accomplishing as much as you would like in life, just less life satisfaction. And that's kind of what human design is trying to bring that awareness to, of, are you living life like that? Because if you're living life like that, you're in that lower expression. And it's empowering to know that you can actually, that you're on like this sliding scale. You're not just stuck on this island of sadness, right? Like, you can slide across the scale and work towards that higher expression of growth and self-empowerment and believing that things could be better and just seeing things in a better light, being a little more positive, however you want to do that. And what I think is so fun about the human design chart is, instead of painting it in these like super broad strokes of like, oh, just have a growth mindset, you're like, okay, but how? Sometimes it can be too detailed for sure, but it gets more detailed where you're like, okay, in this particular area, like what we've been talking about in terms of like how we manage our stress. Okay, cool. We can tune into that particular area of the chart that shows how you tend to manage stress. And instead of being like, oh, now we're going to go try out all of these millions of ways of handling stress, we can look straight at your chart and say, okay, is your root center defined or undefined? So do you have a consistent way of dealing with it or an inconsistent way? And then what are the little lines coming off of your root? So those are all called gates. What are your gates? And then channels connect one center to another. So what are your gates and channels? Because those will tell you how you are already designed to handle stress. And then you can tune into those, like, oh, do I do better making sure I have some time to kind of get still and quiet so that I can process stress and choose what's the next best course of action? Do I need to put more emphasis on like prioritizing things that bring me joy? Do I need to spend more time brainstorming? Like, it's all right there. And then you don't have to waste as much time trying to figure it all out. So I think especially with our physical health and the journey of creating a healthier lifestyle that's healthy for us, mind, body, and soul, and allows us to, say, run successful businesses or have a successful career so that we can feel taken care of as well. It is so important. Like we're going to go through so much trial and error trying to figure out what's right for us anyway. It's nice to have the human design chart to give you a little bit of guidance. Like, you're still going to do some experimenting on figuring out what really does work best for you, because it's not going to put you in this box. Like, if you want to do something a certain way and you're seeing something in your chart that would suggest maybe that's not the best way, like, you still have free will and you can still go try it that way. And yeah, maybe you'll find out that that wasn't the best way, but you're not stuck in this box that says that you're not allowed to do it. The chart's not perfect in that sense. So like I said, it's just really nice. You're going through enough trial and error as it is. I love having the chart as just this extra tool to help give you a little direction. So it's not nearly so overwhelming. So the last thing I wanted to touch on for this intro, like intro to human design video, is the idea that we are all connected. Especially like as a human being, you are fully interconnected, body, mind, and soul. And then of course, I mean, we can layer in that concept too, that we are all connected, right? As people, as a planet. But it all starts with us individuals, right? So you are a whole being. You're not just a body. You're not just a mind. You're not just a soul. It's all connected. And what I love about human design is that it really does, it is totally on board with that. And it actually has this concept that the mind is not the ruler, the body is. It really promotes that concept of body wisdom, which that's what I've been talking about for years now. And I love talking about that. And I think it was just very supportive to find human design that really encourages people to tune more into their body wisdom. So basically, when we live in that highest expression, we thrive, right? That makes sense, right? When you have that growth mindset, when you live in your highest expression, you will thrive body, mind, and soul. Not just mind and soul, like body, mind, and soul. And that is because we are all interconnected. So when you are out of alignment, when you are, say, living in that lower expression and creating a lot of stress, you're not handling stress well, you're not making decisions well, you're not taking action well, it's just like you're all in this pressure cooker, right? We all know your body's going to start to feel that and it's going to start to break down, right? And so human design really tunes into that. And instead of saying, okay, like let's logically think about things, it encourages you to recognize how your body is experiencing all of these different aspects in your chart. Like, how is your body experiencing stress? How is your body experiencing your emotions? How does it feel when you are speaking your truth versus like holding back because you're afraid to speak, right? You're afraid to be heard, maybe. That's like, there's so many topics that we can get into on this, but that's just another layer. But I mean, think about that. Like a person who's had their voice, squashed down for so long, they're going to not only have potential like mental health issues, but they can have physical health issues too because of that stress and that fear, and just not even having that voice. So when you start tuning into how your body is actually experiencing all these different areas, it makes it so much easier to know when you are living in that higher expression versus when you're in the lower expression, because your body is actually going to be the first one to know when you're aligned or not aligned. And so that's kind of the direction that I'm moving, is trying to learn more about how we can really tune into that to take a lot of the trial and error out and just kind of jump ahead. Be like, oh, that's what your body is saying, therefore it's correct for you, therefore this is what we do. And it just takes so much of the guesswork out when we can just tune into the body. And I think that leads us to thriving a whole lot faster. So every aspect then of your chart has that potential to affect your physical and mental health. And your chart conveniently has all of the answers for you already in there on what are the best lifestyle choices for you. So we can kind of skip you to the head of the line and quit with all the trial and error, and we can just hop right into more experimenting with what we think is probably going to work. So I think that's where I'm going to leave it for now, and then we'll go dig into the centers themselves and the gates, and you can start looking at your chart and seeing how this might all play out for you. So I will be sharing more as I kind of collect all the information. I'll be sharing more on what areas of the chart specifically can really help you. So yeah, I can't just, put it all down here. Otherwise this would turn into an excessively long video. So more to come. If there are any areas in particular too that you would like more information on, like if, sleep is kind of a focus for you right now, or, taking action is more important right now, or just whatever, stress management, anything. Let me know what is really important to you right now, and I can go ahead and just put that information out first. Otherwise, I'll just kind of stick it out there as I feel it's right. So that is it for now. Let me know in the comments if this is helpful for you. If there's questions that come up for you, I would love to know where you're at too with human design. And with your health journey as well, your health and lifestyle journey. And so we'll see if we can start making things a little bit easier, a little more clear for you based on your chart. So that's it for now. I will talk to you guys soon.